welcome to Effort Talks. With me is Pablo Pardo. He is an author, he is a journalist, he is the bureau chief of El Mundo, one of the great Spanish newspapers. He's also a very dear friend and a fantastic chap. So welcome, Pablo.
Thank you very much, Arturo. It's always a pleasure being with you and with Federal Server.
Thank you. Pablo, Spain went to the polls earlier this year. We had our mutual friend Francisco Jimenez explain the results of the elections. Now, of course, we are turning to you because no party won a majority in the 350-seat Congress of Deputies. There were two establishment parties, or there are two establishment parties, the center-left Socialists and the center-right Popular Party, and both made significant gains. Vox, the far-right party, Sumar, a left-wing populist coalition that includes Podemos, and the Catalan independence parties all lost seats. Yet, the result has upended Spanish politics. Please explain what's going on.
Well, to put it in an international context, in a global context that can be easily, I think, understood by the Federal Server community, what happened is something that we are seeing in many places, which is, let's say, the establishment parties. They didn't reach, even if they are the majority, they are plurality, let's say, they didn't reach enough popular support to govern. They don't want to work together and to form a coalition government, and therefore they have to rely on the extremes to achieve power, meaning the Popular Party needed the far-right Vox Party, which is not only populist right, but it's moving more and more towards the right. Openly admiring Donald Trump, Viktor Orban in Hungary. And the Socialist Party took Sumar, which is a left-wing party, but it's unclear. I mean, we can think it has moved more towards the center in the past few years. I'll explain later why. But it did like a very risky gamble with the Catalan independentists, basically by they gave an amnesty to the leaders of the secessionist movement, and well, now they can come back to Spain without risk of prosecution, which is kind of interesting. I mean, in order to reach government in a country, you achieve an agreement, or you get the support of people who don't believe that that country should exist.
Yeah, that is ironic.
Yeah, it's absolutely ironic. And in a nutshell, this is what happened. Again, it's like, I mean, we can say that for many years, the Republican Party in the United States did that with the far-right fringe until the far-right fringe ate it with Donald Trump. Some people say that the Democrats are doing something similar with the more leftist elements. I'm not that sure. We have the example of the Tories in the UK with the Brexit, how the Brexiteers ate the Tory party, the Conservative Party, how the far right with Corbyn ate the Labour Party. We have, of course, the case of Israel, where Bibi Netanyahu needs the support of the far right, the religious far right. So, I mean, this is not a unique case of Spain.
Understood.
Unfortunately, I think.
In that sense, Spain is less like Germany, which is an exception where the two main parties can get together, until recently did get together. And Scholz and Merkel could serve in the same cabinet. Spain, in fact, follows the broader trend, wherein the two main parties are such at loggerheads that they can't come together for a national coalition, and therefore they have to rely on the fringes to the right and to the left to come to power. And now we have, as you said, a very curious situation in which the Prime Minister may rely on support of parties that want to succeed from the country, such as the Catalan independence parties. So, how did this happen? Just a few weeks ago, socialist leader Pedro Sánchez seemed to be dead in the water, and his popular party rival Alberto Núñez Feijóo controlled more seats in parliament than him. But now Sánchez has pulled the rabbit out of the hat. He has formed the government. How has he done it?
Well, it has been a truly fascinating process, and particularly for someone who likes politics and policy, like the Fair Observer people, is really interesting. And I think
you're here because of popular demand. Our editorial team said that we must have Pablo Pardo explain Spain because there's no one better.
Thank you. No, because it shows really the unpredictable nature of politics, let's say. Just to put things in a little bit of context, all the polls, starting last year, all the polls put the Popular Party, the Conservatives, ahead of the Socialists. They had a new leader, Alberto Núñez Feijóo. That's the way his name is pronounced in Spanish. English speakers have a really tough time saying it. And he seemed, I mean, he has, like, let's say, a quiet, tranquil leadership that seemed to be very, very much of the liking of the Spanish people. So it seemed almost like a done process. I mean, I could compare it with the situation with Keir Starmer and Rishi Sunak in the UK. So then the local elections come in May, and the Popular Party literally trounces the Socialist Party. They destroy them. The results that they obtain, they are way better than what the polls expected, what the polls had announced. At the same time, the far right, Vox, also obtains a very good result in the election. So, I mean, the writing is on the wall. Let's say we have elections in November. It's clear that the only thing that can be argued or can be in doubt is if the Conservatives, the Popular Party, are going to be able to form a government by themselves, or if they will need the support of Vox, the far right. And this must be noted, the Conservatives in Spain, to put it mildly, they detest Vox. They don't like Vox. So it's not like in other countries where they can see them as natural partners or whatever. They didn't want to form a government with Vox. I mean, they obviously, if they needed it, they would do it, but the hatred is mutual.
Why?
So,
Why?
I mean, it seemed, in May, it seemed literally like now with Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer. And then Pedro Sánchez.
No, hold fire.
Yeah.
Rishi and Keir are Labour and Tory. So Labour and Tory could never get together, and the only time they got together was probably World War II and maybe one or two other national coalitions. So that is an ideological divide. But here, both Vox and the Conservatives are to the right. So why is there such division between them on the right?
Yeah, well, first of all, I didn't make it clear in terms of Rishi Sunak and Starmer, in the sense that what I was trying to compare was the state of the polling. I mean, it's like now, if you ask someone from Britain, he will tell you, oh, there's no way Labour is going to win next year. I mean, it's almost like something that is decided. I'm not saying that is decided. The voters can go the other way.
Actually, opinion polls, Labour, I've just got back from the UK. So Labour is still in the lead. Keir is expected to win. However, the Labour Party has now faced major division over Gaza. As you know, there's a rebellion against Keir Starmer. So Britain is in an interesting position for obvious reasons. Now, the Labour Party relies a lot on the Muslim vote, and in fact, A lot of the left-leaning Labour Party members are also people who believe in liberating Palestine, so they speak. So there is less sympathy for Israel. And at the same time, the
So it can be a
Blairites
problem.
and at the same time, the Blairites are quite pro-Israel, and Keir Starmer has taken a stand that Israel must be able to defend its national security. So there, it's a very interesting foreign policy issue affecting internal policy. In a way, it's Labour Party is being divided by Gaza in the same way Brexit divided the Conservative Party.
Yeah, I see. Well, anyway, let's not go
but explain to us the Vox and Conservative dislike in Spain. What is the
Vox
reason?
and Conservatives, they dislike themselves for a number of reasons. Basically, Vox has taken an extremely strong stance against the Conservatives. They have referred to them repeatedly as the little cowardly right. They've accused them of being just like here in the United States with the rhinos, they accuse them of being just a light version of the socialists. And since Vox is a very
rhinos for our global listeners are Republicans in name only. So for our global listeners who are not American, in the Republican Party, there is huge civil war. Pablo and I witness it. We are not in politics, we witness it. And a lot of the right-leaning Republicans hate Republicans who are willing to compromise with the Democrats or are not right enough.
Absolutely. So that's the situation. And then there's also like a personal hatred. Many people in Vox, they started their careers in the Popular Party, and then they switched sides. So there's some sort of bad blood because of that.
And so maybe they are competing for the same voters. Maybe that's also the case.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So we can say they see each other as traitors. And it's oftentimes, it's easier to deal with the enemy than with the traitors, or with the ones you think are traitors at an emotional level. So anyway, let's go back to May. The stage seems set for a big conservative victory in November in the elections. And then Pedro Sánchez, who is the prime minister, who has based all his career in taking risks, and we could say more risks, always against the odds. The night of the election, he decides to call for a snap election to be held as soon as possible, which was July 23rd. So instead of having the election around this time of the year, in November, we had it in July. It could sound like a kamikaze movement, but the rationale of Sánchez was the following. On the one hand, if I stay in power, it's going to be like 5-6 months of misery. I'm going to be worse than a lame duck. So if this is the prospect, forget about it. I prefer to live in August, and at least I have, the summer for myself. He also sounds many times as a possible candidate to lead some international organization. So perhaps he was having that in mind as well. I don't know. His second element to decide was the Popular Party is not prepared for an electoral campaign now. They are betting everything on a slow process where the government becomes more and more unpopular because there's this dynamic. So if we surprise them, they will be completely unprepared, and at least we will have a slim chance. So that's the critical component. Also, at the same time, the parties on the far left that support Sánchez, they were in state of civil war. Because traditionally there was a very lefty party, very much in line with Venezuela, with Cuba, which is called Podemos. We can. Podemos had suffered big fracture, and the majority of Podemos had created a new party called Sumar, to add or adding, let's say, that is much more to the center. It's we can say it's far right, but more modern far right in the sense of identity politics or things like that, but it's not necessarily anti-capitalist. It doesn't, support or...
Podemos was far left, right? It is
Yes.
Cuba, Venezuela. So Sumar is not far right. It would be center, right? It's to the center of far left, right?
We could say it's left.
Yeah.
Some people will call it far right. I mean, I don't know, but certainly it's not as extreme as Podemos. Certainly it's not as extreme.
So is it very nationalist? Is that why you're calling it far right? Sumar, is it very nationalist that Spain should have closed borders? Spain should have. Then why the use of the word far right?
Sorry, far left. I meant with Podemos is far left. I apologize.
Okay.
Podemos is
far left. Sumar is also left.
Left, but not as far left.
Not as far left. Exactly. I wanted to clarify that. Please carry on.
Sorry. No, I made a mistake. So so anyway, so they were at civil war, Podemos and Sumar, and with the fact that, I mean, in the moment that Sánchez presents them with the fact that, hey guys, just for you to know, in 2 months there's a general election, they immediately reached a peace agreement. Because obviously they didn't want to lose more power. And so they reached a peace agreement that even if they actually hate each other, and actually when they reached the peace agreement, the founder of Podemos, he said, "We are hugging snakes," which is a very clear way of saying, well, we don't like what we are doing. But anyway, that introduced some sort of peace in the at the left of the Socialist Party, and well, that was the situation. So the Popular Party got completely off guard. They hadn't prepared the election, and then when the election happens, the Popular Party wins the election. Wins in terms of popular vote and also in terms of seats in parliament, but wins by very little. I mean, it wins like 1.5 points in the popular vote above the Socialists, which is much, much, much less than what the polls were predicting. The polls were predicting a conservative landslide. There's also a second interesting phenomenon, which is Vox, the far-right party, that had gotten very good results in the local elections, crashes in the general election, which no one knows exactly why. I can give you many explanations, but no one knows the reason. Possibly the reason is that people trust them more as managers for their communities than as a governing party for the whole country. Their position regarding immigration is very extreme. They are extremely Catholic, even though their leader and some of their leaders are divorced and whatever, but I mean, it's like they're very, very Catholic. They sympathize with Donald Trump. Donald Trump in Europe, as you know, is very unpopular. I mean, even by conservatives. You have to be a very, very, very far-right guy to like Donald Trump. Viktor Orban in Hungary as well. So
even the conservatives in the UK, I met a number of very close friends who are in the Tory party, and not one of them likes Donald Trump. But they view him with distaste.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like for all kind of reasons, let's say, political and aesthetical reasons, and also perhaps even class reasons. I mean, European conservatives abhor Donald Trump. Anyway, the case is that Podemos loses basically 1/3 of its seats in the Chamber of Deputies, which is the important chamber in the Spanish Parliament. And then all of a sudden, it's clear. It's like the addition of the Popular Party plus Podemos, plus Vox, I apologize, plus Vox, is not enough to form a government.
Yeah, they
Um,
fell a few seats short. We went through the numbers with
exactly.
Francisco, just a few
Very,
seats short.
very few, like
Yeah.
2 or 3 seats. I mean, they were literally like a whisker away.
Yeah.
But they fail.
Yeah.
The socialists have a chance, have an opportunity, which is basically create some sort of agreement with the rest.
Yeah.
And the rest is extremely heterogeneous. I mean, you have the Socialist Party, which can be compared to the British Labour Party, German Social Democrats, a standard social democratic party in Europe. You have a Sumar, which could be perhaps compared to the left wing of the Greens in Germany, something like that, or the left wing of Labour in the UK.
Yeah.
You have Podemos, which is, I mean, they want the nationalization of the means of production. You have the Basque and Catalan nationalists, who, with different degrees, they want independence for those regions, or if not independence, at least a federal state or even a confederation. So, I mean, it's a really crazy thing that you are trying to put together. According to Spanish law,
this almost sounds like Israeli politics.
Totally, completely. No, it sounds, it is Israeli politics. That's probably why Pedro Sánchez and Bibi Netanyahu have a horrible personal relationship, because they understand each other. And they know that for the other, the principles are something that, well, these are my principles. If you don't like them, here I got some others, and let's negotiate. So the issue is that first, the Conservative Party, since they won the election, they have to form a government. They fail because they can only get the support of Vox, and no nationalist Basque or Catalan is going to support them because they are in favor of a stronger centralized Spanish state. Then it comes the turn of the socialists. And for the socialists, the big issue is that they need the support of the party that called for the Catalan independence referendum in 2017. I think it was 17 or 18. I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, it was very controversial. I remember we discussed it. I remember you explained a number of aspects of that referendum. Carles Puigdemont has been away in Brussels, I believe. He has an arrest warrant out.
Exactly.
And they've actually declined in support in this election, and yet they are playing kingmaker.
Exactly. They are playing kingmaker, totally, which is really paradoxical. But I mean, the problem with Carles Puigdemont and the other leaders of the Spanish, the Catalan secessionist movement, is that they, many of them are in exile, because if they come back to Spain, they will be trialed for sedition. So, and this is a really vast issue, because on the one hand, we have a few leaders that could be tried for sedition, purely political sedition, but then there are like tens or even hundreds of low-ranking members, particularly at the local levels of government, in town halls or city halls, and things like that, that are being tried right now for misuse of public funding, in the sense that, let's say, you are the mayor of a town, you have a budget for roads, for sanitation, for electricity, for whatever, and you take from that budget that was approved by the city council, you take an X amount of money and you use it to promote independence. So it's just a, let's say, money crime. I mean, it's not a political crime. Well, it has a political side, but they have been trying basically for misuse of public funding.
Exactly. Because
So,
they are
I mean,
using public funds fundamentally to break up the country, and that is
yeah, it's
against the
and
law.
not only
In fact,
yeah,
in any
and
country.
yes, and I mean, and even the Spanish judiciary decided to go the nicest way, let's say, because they instead of saying, well, you're using public funding for breaking up the country, they say as well, well, using public funding that was approved by your city council to be spent in something, to be spent in something else. So you are literally breaching your fiduciary
Duty.
role.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, they were trying to, let's say, lower as much as possible the possibility of confrontation. Still, I mean, this was going on, and all these cases also are going to be, I mean, ignored and they are going to be forgotten. Also, there was some Catalan secessionists in prison already. Some of them who decided to stay in Spain. I think there were 8, and they were freed last winter. Many people say that they were freed precisely in preparation for this year election.
Yeah.
So anyway, the thing is that now we have a government in Spain where it's a coalition government of socialists and Sumar, which again could be like the SPD and the Green in Germany or something like that, perhaps a bit more tilted to the left, but not much more. But then there's like a constellation of parties that support this government in parliament, which includes conservative Catalan independentists, lefty Catalan independentists, conservative Catalan, let's say, nationalists who don't want independence, lefty Catalans who are nationalists but don't want independence, very conservative Basques who are nationalists and they want independence or a federal state, extremely left Basque nationalists who want a federal state, but also they are very, very, very far left. So
yeah, they are the descendants of ETA, the terrorist organization.
Exactly, they are the descendants of ETA. Their leader, Arnaldo Otegi, he was an ETA terrorist, and he spent several years in prison. So I mean, as you can see, it's very, very difficult
This is Israel, Pablo.
Yeah, it's totally Israel. No, you nailed it. It's completely Israel. So Sánchez, I mean, he's in power, but he's going to have to be playing many instruments at the same time to keep the show going.
Good. So now, such coalition will by its very nature be unstable. It is inherently unstable. So what does this mean for Spanish policy making, Spanish legislation, Spanish economic policy?
I think that this coalition is going to be, I mean, the government is not going to be very effective. Because, as you said, it's a very heterogeneous coalition.
Yeah. I mean, you've got people pulling in different directions. You've got a chariot in which you have 10 horses, and all 10 of them are flying in 10 different directions.
Yes. On the other hand, I think that my feeling is that this coalition is going to last. It's going to last possibly 4 years.
Wow.
Because there's no alternative. I mean, if they lose power, it's highly possible that the Conservatives will win, and we will win with the support of Vox, and all these parties will lose power. And some of these parties, specifically the Socialist Party, will have to go through a serious day of reckoning, because many people in Sanchez's party, they think that he is playing with fire by pulling together this coalition.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, Sanchez has no choice.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's going to
tell our viewers about how he rose to power, because there's a lot of bad blood about Sanchez in his party, and I've met a couple of people from his party in Washington, and not one of them had good things to say about him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Sanchez basically he presents himself in the primaries of the Socialist Party. I think around 2016 or something like that. And he
unseated the then prime minister in a palace coup, in a way.
Yeah, but that was later. But I mean, first he how he got. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I mean, this once a minister of Sanchez government, who is, and I'm not going to go beyond that, but is one of the two ministers that have a lot of international presence, let's say. So basically, I'm just leaving it to two. He said something about Sanchez, which just said, I mean, if all your life, instead of taking the stairs or taking the elevator, you jump out of the window to go out, it's impossible for you to learn to use the elevator or the window or the stairs. Meaning, Sanchez has all his life has taken like crazy risks, and all his life he has succeeded. I mean, this is something, I mean, to admire up to a point. Anyway, he becomes socialist, the Socialist Party general secretary or secretary general, which is the top.
Yeah.
And then the old guard deposes him around 2016, 2017. I don't remember exactly the year. So then he starts a campaign, something that is completely unusual in Spain. He starts like a campaign going town by town, begging for the support of the local affiliation or the local affiliates to the party and everything, until he gets enough support to call for a new Congress, a new party Congress, and he wins. I mean, he's a man who defeats the old guard basically by himself. And then he undertakes a purge of the old guard. He gets rid of all of them, which, I mean, he's been left many political dead bodies in his wake. And then he launches a non-confidence vote on the Conservative Party. At the time, the prime minister was Mariano Rajoy. And against all the odds, he wins because the Basque nationalists decided in the last minute to support him. So that's the way he reaches the government. The Conservatives never accept him, never give him legitimacy, because they think that he won through a non-confidence vote, which is it's not going to the polls. But I mean, it's a legal procedure. So, I mean, like it or not, it's there. Then Sanchez calls for elections. The elections don't go very well for him, but they don't go bad either. He tries desperately, and I think this is the critical moment. Sanchez tries desperately to reach a agreement or form a government, a coalition government, with the centrist liberals in Spain, which were called at the time Ciudadanos, citizens. And the voters of the party, it was the third party, almost tied with the Conservatives, Ciudadanos. The party's base literally begs the leadership for an agreement with the Socialists, because they know that if that's not the case, the Socialists will have to pact with the far left. And the party, the leadership refuses. refuses once and again. It's a whole summer when the party is refusing. So when Sánchez calls for election again, the Liberal Party basically disappears. It has disappeared because of that catastrophic mistake. So that's what I say. I mean, it's like Sánchez is always in a very weak position, and he's always winning. The others are the ones who lose. So yeah, that's basically it. And then he reaches, just to make a long story short, he reaches an agreement with the far left, with Podemos, which at the time they were very, 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 very far left, and they hated the socialists. Again, it's like the ideological cousins.
Yeah.
And with some nationalists, and then he rules the country for 3.5 years.
He's a leader straight out of Machiavelli. He has the bravery of a lion and the cunningness of a fox, and the cunning of a fox.
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. That's a superb way of putting it. I think I'm going to borrow that.
So you think he lost simply because of self-interest of everyone else, and politics makes strange bedfellows, and the glue of power will keep the coalition together?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. So,
obviously, I don't know, but I think so.
Obviously.
I mean, it's like, for instance, now, I mean, he's very good at playing with things. I mean, he went recently to Israel, and he made some really, I mean, incredibly tough comments on Israel in the war in Gaza. I mean, he went to the border pass where the hostages are being released by Hamas, and he said there are precisely 2 hours before a group of hostages were set free, that Israel needed to respect international law, and Israel is not supporting, is not following international law. He said that in Israel. And he's currently Spain has the presidency of the European Union. So the Israelis were mad at him. On the other hand, you ask here in the White House, or you ask here in the State Department, and they tell you, well, we understand that Prime Minister Sánchez has his agenda. What's his agenda? His agenda is that he has in his government people who really sympathize with the Palestinians. So in order to placate them, he has to do something, he has to say something spectacular. In terms of reality, is this changing at all the Spanish stance? No. I mean, Sánchez has been able, and I always say that, I mean, he had in his first government, Podemos can be labeled as communists. And Spain had a NATO summit, really in the midst of the invasion of Ukraine, where NATO redefined basically its goals and its purpose and its strategy. I always say that if you are able to have a NATO summit, and an important NATO summit, with the communists in your government, and they don't leave, you are able to do, or at least to convince many people of many things that don't have to be necessarily the same thing, but he can sell many things to many people.
And he certainly has more staying power than Boris Johnson, who sold many things to many people, but
yes, no,
it
absolutely.
all turned sour pretty quickly.
He's also, I mean, a pretty disciplined guy. I mean, he
not 11 or 12 children as per rumor.
Contrary to Johnson, yeah. I mean, we know that he likes rock music, but he doesn't like partying in the middle of a quarantine because of COVID confinement. So yeah.
Excellent. So that's very interesting in terms of the personality of Sánchez. What will be the policies? What do you think will be the agenda for the next 4 years? Because Spain, like much of the world, and in fact, most of Europe is going through economic trouble.
Well, I think that the economic agenda is going to be basically a continuation of the current one, in the sense of, let's say, expansion of the social network, and trying to bring more and more and more tech investment in Spain. Spain has been making a big effort to attract technology-based industries during the Sánchez era. I think the results are pretty modest because Spain is not traditionally a tech hub, and now Europe, I think, is even losing more power, let's say, compared to the United States and to Asia. But I mean, he's achieving some successes in terms of bringing some companies like Google is developing a big research center. He's trying to, and I think it's a smart movement because he's trying to put the Spanish economic system a bit away from tourism. Tourism is traditionally the biggest industry of Spain, it's the cash cow, and tourism comes with big ebbs and lows, depending on the economic situation and a number of things.
It's very cyclical, and
exactly.
COVID hurts tourism
COVID
immensely.
Killed it. Yeah, I mean, so
exactly. And the real estate sector is also huge in Spain because a lot of British people, German people own homes there.
Exactly.
And so Spain, when I was a corporate lawyer in London, Spain was living through the heyday. Remember, I worked on the Ferrovial takeover of BA.
I remember you told me, and those were days where everything. I mean, it was like like living in the middle of a bubble, and everything was. I mean, not allowed, but everything was fine. I mean, it was impossible to lose money, let's say. So, I mean, he's trying to diversify the economy.
Exactly.
In terms of international politics, it's very interesting because, I mean, Sánchez is extremely pro-American. He's extremely pro-American. Again, remarkable when you have, I mean, in his previous government, he had people who admire Hugo Chavez and Nicolás Maduro and Fidel Castro. And he was hosting a NATO summit. He was coming here. Actually, the White House did him a subtle favor in this election because it was when the local election campaign started, the day it officially started, because in Spain there's a specific time for a electoral campaign to start. And President Joe Biden met with Prime Minister Sánchez in the White House and whatever. So it was like a subtle ways, like obviously we don't play politics, but we're rather happy with this guy. I mean, Spain has given very little, I would say, material support to Ukraine, but has sent a significant amount of troops and assets to protect the eastern side of NATO, bordering Russia and Belarus. Spain hasn't complained at all with Morocco and the annexation of Western Sahara. Actually, after 47 years of actively opposing the annexation of Western Sahara by Morocco, Sánchez, in what is considered a complete betrayal to the left ideology in Spain, he changed sides. And he opened, I mean, in practical terms, he acknowledges that Western Sahara is part of Morocco.
And that's, of course, the Polisario Front, as they are called. And, you know, that's that has been a very long-running dispute and a real sore point between Morocco and Spain.
Yeah, and Spain, I mean, Spain, in particular the left in Spain, they have had always a big complex because they feel that we betrayed the Sahrawis, the people from Sahara, when we granted them independence in 1975. We promised them that they would be independent, and then we left and Morocco invaded and we didn't do anything. It is true that at the same time Franco was dying, Spain was in a political let's say standstill. But it was so, I mean, Sánchez sometimes can be like very conservative, let's say, or extremely conservative. I don't think any other European country has acknowledged so openly the possibility that
he sounds
Morocco can have it.
He sounds like an artist who's climbed to the top of the grease pool. He seems to be a phenomenal politician.
Yes, I mean, I would say that in the short term, he's a phenomenal politician. I don't know if he's, because I mean, the problem is that he has created a number of divisions in Spain. And I think that the biggest division is precisely what has happened now with the amnesty, because it's not just that the amnesty allows the secessionists to come back, because I mean, in exchange for the amnesty, the secessionists have promised, and they have signed a document saying that they won't ask for another referendum or another process of secession again. It's rather tricky because it's signed in their individual capacity, so others can ask for a referendum or secession. But I think that the biggest damage is the idea that, okay, to form a government, I give amnesty to people who have clearly committed sedition. So, I mean, again, it's purely Machiavellian. I mean, it's like government goes well above the law, let's say. If the law offers a window to circumvent the law, I will take it. I don't know if this can create an idea in Spain of everything is fine. I mean, it's like everything is okay. You can do whatever you want. I mean, no barriers, no understanding, no nothing. But yeah, it's a really gifted politician, and in the short run, I mean, he's very tactical. He's very courageous. He takes lots of risks. I mean, he's like the idea that politicians, once they reach power, they become more, I mean, conservative, not in an ideological sense, but they are more fearful of taking risks, doesn't work with Pedro Sánchez.
Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Are there parallels between what is happening in Spain and Argentina, the other area of your interest? You have you have Javier Milei as president. I was interviewing an Argentinian earlier, a professor.
Well, I think that the situation is very, very different. I was in Argentina last week, precisely on vacation, and I talked to a number of friends who are more or less involved in politics, in journalism, in lobbying. And I mean, the situation in Argentina is much more difficult because, among other things, setting aside the very special personality of Javier Milei, setting aside also the fact that no one understands how he's going to implement the dollarization, or nobody knows, setting aside that they can't implement the dollarization right now because they don't have the money to do so. The IMF doesn't want dollarization. The IMF doesn't want fixed exchange rates since 2002, precisely when Argentina, Brazil, Russia, Thailand, Indonesia, South Korea, all of them had managed exchange rates, and all of them exploded, causing a tremendous havoc in those economies, and sometimes in the world economy.
I mean, Argentina owes $44 billion to the IMF. It's not just chump change.
Yeah. No, exactly. I mean, Argentina has been leading on IMF support for the last 3 or 4 years. I mean, it's like no one else lends money to Argentina. And so, I mean, that's a problem. But I think that politically speaking, and I mean, obviously you have interviewed somebody from Argentina, so you, I mean, you have much better information, and I watched that interview with interest. I think that the biggest problem right now is that it doesn't seem that Milei knows who is going to pick for the government. I mean, it seems that there's a lot of confusion.
I think, I was being facetious. Milei doesn't even have a party. He's a celebrity. Whilst, to be honest, Spain seems to be more like Israel, not at all like Argentina, because you have political parties, those political parties have clear agendas, and to cobble together horses of very different stripes and colors in one
Yes.
government requires someone like Bibi Netanyahu or Sanchez, both of whom, as you said,
Yeah.
these are my principles. If you don't like them, here are some others. And so,
Yeah.
they in that sense, they are far more machine politicians. They are
Yes.
astute. They are brave. They are, whether we like them or not, they are effective.
Yes. No, I completely agree with you. And Milei is a one-man show, basically, and it's not clear. I mean, he has already announced and then withdrawn some big appointments, and I think this is going to be bad. And at the same time, in a country where I mean it's like a 147% inflation, I think.
It's crazy.
I went to Argentina. The official exchange rate was 350. Then I went to one so-called little trees, they call them, arbolitos, because they pop up on the streets, which is the people who exchange money. And I exchanged my dollars for 950 pesos. My Argentine friends told me, don't be stupid, don't change all your money now. Perhaps in a few days you could make much more money. And right, I mean, 3 or 4 days later it was 1,050, and I think it reached even 1,100. But still, I mean, it's like I wrote about this in El Mundo, going to the most expensive restaurant in Argentina, Rufino, for 3 people, ordering, I think it was the second most expensive wine, excellent Argentine wine, Malbec, in the wine list, and eating a lot of meat, excellent meat. It was like around 110 euros, which could be like $120 or something like that. And this is like if you say, well, you go to the most expensive restaurant in New York City, and it takes you a lot of effort to spend $100 for 3 people. I mean, it's a situation that is absolutely
Are you
dramatic.
selling tourism for Argentina? Does that mean everyone should go and have steak and wine in Argentina?
I mean, people should. I mean, it's like, no,
Okay.
I mean, it's really sad. It's really sad. I travel a little bit through Patagonia.
Yeah.
And in one of the Patagonia provinces, in Chubut, I saw a piece of news in the local newspaper, which was the local government had run completely out of money. So they were asking the government workers, the civil servants, not to go to work, not to get paid, and in exchange for that, they would have discounts in some selected stores. I mean, that even if you're a foreigner on vacation, whatever, I mean, that's really brutal. I mean, that's horrendous. Imagine that your government tells you, we can't pay you. Please don't come to work because we are not going to be able to pay you, but you will have in this supermarket, that supermarket, you will have a discount just to try to compensate you. I mean, it's the destruction of a society.
Yeah. So let's get away from the former Spanish colony of Argentina, once one of the richest, and come back to Europe. Sanchez has now become prime minister again, and Sanchez will head the EU presidency. What does this mean?
Well, it's finishing.
It's finishing.
His term ends on December 31st. Yes.
Okay. So what does this mean for Europe, Sanchez's victory? Because we've had a very important election in the Netherlands. Again, notice the Netherlands election will also be coalition. There you have Pim Fortuyn, his Freedom Party, interesting character as well, with Indonesian. No, it is Geert Wilders. Sorry, my apologies.
Geert
Wilders, and it's his Freedom Party. Yeah. So what does this mean in the European context, where the parallel is more apt?
Well, it seems that the far right in Spain is not prospering at all. Vox went from having, I think, 49 seats in parliament to have 32.
Yeah, they fell
That's
15.
huge loss. It felt 17. It felt like it lost like 1/3 of its vote. And it's interesting also because and it's the paradoxical thing. The establishment parties in Spain, they increase the share of the vote. The conservatives increase the share of the vote massively. The socialists increased it a little bit. Vox crashed, as I said. The combination of Podemos and Sumar, we can say the two factions of the far left, they also lost votes, so they got a massive loss of votes compared to when they were together under the banner of Podemos. Catalan independentists, and this is the biggest paradox, they were trounced in the election. They were completely destroyed in the election, but absolutely, they fell from being the first or second most voted party to be like the third or the fourth. But again, they had the seats that Sánchez needed. So by losing, they won. We could say that the only place where the rule didn't apply is in the Basque region, where the former ETA terrorists, they got a very good results, and they will probably be able to govern when they have elections in the region this year. But the big paradox, and I think it's a paradox that can be drawn for the rest of the world, is that, let's say, the centrists, some can call them pro-establishment, but I prefer to call them centrists, moderate parties, they still get the majority of the support of the voters.
So very different to the Netherlands.
Yes, it's completely different from the Netherlands, absolutely. The problem here is that
in a way, Spain, the election, for all its messiness, presents one scenario, one possibility for Europe, wherein the centrist parties roar back and emerge as forces of stability. And of course, the Netherlands presents the other scenario, wherein the established political parties somehow lose trust and people vote for alternatives.
Yeah. Yes, and but I mean the sad part of the Spanish election, let's say, is that the centrist, the establishment parties, they were unable to reach an agreement and to form a grand coalition to a great extent because of personal hatred and personal reasons, and because both Sánchez and Feijóo, they wanted to be the prime minister, and none of them is ready to relinquish that. So it's like better with I will go better with the enemies of my enemy than going with my potential allies. So it's a really unfortunate situation in the end, because I mean, for once we can say that the Spanish public didn't want any of the possible results, either a Popular Party plus Vox, or what we got. People wanted something more like centrist. I mean, it's like in the United States, people don't want Trump or Biden. They would prefer to have someone else. And the system is going to give them Trump or Biden.
So the political structure in Spain arguably is failing the Spanish people.
I would say so. Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
At least in this moment, I don't think it's something more like a structure or something, but in this moment, yeah, it has the machinery has failed.
So does that mean that should Sánchez stay in power, the Conservatives can expect a rebound? People will vote for Conservatives and vote for stability in the next election?
Who knows? I mean, that's very difficult to. I mean, it's like the Conservative Party is in shock. Because they thought that they were going to win. I mean, they had literally, I mean, and everybody thought they were going to win. I mean, it's like I was invited to an event at the American Enterprise Institute 3 days before the election, and we were 2 Spaniards and 2 other people from Europe. And one of the questions was, well, are the Conservatives going to win by absolute majority, or are they going to need Vox? I mean, that was the expected result. So yeah, it was so the Conservatives are in disarray. Literally, they are in disarray. They will deny that, but they are in disarray. And the others, the government, they know that they have to stick together, because they can bicker and fight and yell at each other, but at the end of the day, they're going to be together, because they know that if they lose, they will be completely wiped out, and it will be very, very difficult for them to come back to power again in a foreseeable future.
All right. So now we have a summary of Spain. Thank you very much for your time. We'll have you back to discuss other things in other parts of the world. Final quick question for you. Any implications for the EU?
I think very little, basically because it's going to maintain the status quo. And also both in terms of European policy, socialists and conservatives, they have a rather similar stance, particularly with Sánchez, who has moved Spanish policy more towards NATO. And I mean, it's not a big change. Now Spain has I would say, a big challenge, no matter who is in power, which is the European Union center of gravity is moving to the east. Same thing with NATO. Spain is exactly in the opposite side, in the extreme west, and also in the south. And for NATO, all the southern flank has lost a lot of importance, and for Spain is of a critical importance what happens in North Africa. So, but I mean, this is something that could happen with whoever is in power. But no, I don't think there's going to be a significant change. Perhaps more support with well, perhaps not for sure, much more support with the socialists for all the energy transition, green policies, and so on, but nothing, let's say, dramatic.
All right. Thank you very much for your time. We'll see you very soon, Pablo.
Pleasure, like always. Hope it was useful. Good luck. Thank you very much.
Join the conversation at Fair Observer and subscribe to our YouTube channel.